to get started. So today's topic is about debugging with Visual Basic for applications. So I want to talk more about how to use the debugger, what features there are, and maybe some of them you've seen, some of them you're perhaps less familiar with. And I'll also show a couple of tools, small tools, little functions that I've written to enhance the debug experience. For example, one thing I always want to do is know what exactly is in my record set. So if you write a little bit of code to dump the record set to the debug window, or to the immediate window, I should say, then that's one of those tools that can make your debugging experience a little nicer. Questions are encouraged, so not just at the end of this presentation. It will probably take about 30 minutes, and so we may actually do this twice depending on how many people are joining the meeting, maybe jumping on a little bit later. Let's jump right into a very simple scenario, and we'll deal with a few more complicated scenarios a little bit later. We've opened the Northwind database and hit Alt F11 to get to the code, the VBA editor, or we could have hit Control G to go to the immediate window. This is my layout. Everyone will do that a little bit different. You can dock these windows, or you can do that differently if you want to. You can go to Options, Docking, and then check. And since we're talking about debugging, I was thinking, what's the simplest way to generate a runtime error? Because typically this is what we're doing with debugging, is we're getting an error, we don't understand what happened. And we want to jump into the code and find out what's going on. So dividing by 0 is a good way to do that. If I hit the run button, then the procedure where the cursor is will execute. Or if I hit it in the immediate window and hit enter, then the same thing will happen. This works for public procedures in standard modules, and we're currently in mod test, and so it will work here. So when I hit enter, then no surprise, we're getting a division by 0 error. I'm going to hit Control Break. If you ever do any debugging, that is your favorite keystroke, because it interrupts whatever code is going on and breaks into the debugger. And it's a special keystroke that's recognized at the operating system level, and it's quite powerful. And so then the debugger gets control and says, what is it that you want to do? Typically you want to debug. And we were just here at this statement, and then the next line is being highlighted as the current line of execution, because we're just now past the message box statement. This message box statement had shown us the division by 0 error, and we're now here to execute the next line of code. If I were to hit step, then it would resume at the exit handler. This is the instruction pointer, so this is where we are. We can actually move that instruction pointer around. If we want to torture ourselves one more time, we can just put it right there. There's also keystrokes for the same operation. Here for a moment. Let's look around and recognize a few other things that are going on. Here on the right hand side I have my locals window. Again, you can put it wherever you want. I kind of like it here. It shows you all your local variables. I don't have that many. X is the only one. And X is currently at a value of 0, and it's an integer. Expand into, depending on exactly what's going on, into other objects, and certainly there can be many more here in more complicated procedures. Watches is a separate window where you can have certain expressions, variables. I already have one loaded here, and you will later see why I'm doing that. What I want to see is here under the debug options. Are there any other options here that we want to talk about? Certainly, the step operations where you want to step to over or into the next statement, and we will be doing that a lot. Adding a watch, editing existing ones, clearing breakpoints. We haven't talked about breakpoints yet, but if I knew ahead of time that this was a specifically focus on, I can click in the margin and set a breakpoint, and I can clear them if I want to. There are also a couple of windows here. Call stack is one of the debug windows that's going to be very interesting. Not right now, because there's only one entry, but in a minute I'll bring this back up, and this window should really be under the debug menu, I think. Another important thing under the debug menu is compile. Developers are not aware of this option, but it's very important that you compile your application and that it does not give any errors. When you CVE, that happens automatically, so at that point you would probably recognize that you have an error, but frankly I compile my applications every 15-30 minutes or so. It's very, very common. Next statement that I was just talking about, Control F9, where you can move the instruction pointer around. Right now I'm gonna, another thing that I did was here under the View toolbar, and so here in the upper right hand corner you can see my debug toolbar, lower right hand corner, and so I will use that sometimes to show you where we're stepping to. So in this case, I did a step and we just execute the next line of code, and then we execute the last line of code, and now my cursor here is blinking again, indicating we're done with executing the procedure. Okay, this scenario is slightly more interesting by commenting this out and bring this in and doing this one more time. Division by 0, no surprise. Controlled break. Same line of code. Let's look at a few other things. First of all, I want to do this one more time. I can indeed drag the instruction pointer back to that line, and because this is a simple procedure, that's probably what I would normally do. But the other thing that I can do is this resume statement. There's actually large functions where the error might have happened in any number of places. And this resume statement is normally never executed because, there's a guard just above it. But if you drag your instruction pointer here and step again, let's go back here into step, it will indeed jump to whatever line actually caused the error. We're still debugging. Why is this thing giving us the division by 0? In this case, we had this nice getDivisor function where the idea was that hopefully this problem would not happen. Sorry, I clicked on the wrong Control F9. So I'm going to step in. So getDivisor function is being executed. And so here I'm getting a equals 5 and getDivisor equals a divided by b. And we again get our division by 0. And now we can recognize by looking at this code that, maybe we forgot to initialize b, because we're dividing by b, but b never gets a value. That's really what our code should have been. That one more time to step into. I'm going to hit F8. I'm more of a keyboard person. F8, I'm going to step into. Now it finishes normally, and getDivisor has a nice integer division value, and we no longer get an error message. That was the simple scenario.